first thing you could do pretty easily, say it's a Titan, so it's probably the best card ever printed, and you could probably end the analysis there and be pretty accurate. However, hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here, and we are back for a mini-set review video and also a card review for the neutral cards here. So we're going to talk mainly about the neutral cards they've revealed, which includes all of the main big mechanics for this mini set. And as you can see, this is a Yogg-Saron themed expansion, so you know it is very themed around a whole lot of randomness, a lot of which we are going to get into. That includes anomalies. Again, we'll get there very soon. And as of right now, not all of the class cards have been revealed yet, so I'm going to wait until that. Expect that video to come out maybe late on Sunday, but definitely by Monday at some point. But with that, we're just going to get right into this here. So, I mean, these are just details, of course. It's Yogg-Saron themed. It's normal details about how you buy the mini set, blah, blah, blah. But okay, let's talk about the first major detail, which is anomalies. We'll also talk about the first card here, which is one of the neutral legendaries here. We're going to have to talk about these together because they're very intertwined. So the legendary here is cho'gall, Twilight Chieftain. 6 mana, 6/7 taunt, lifesteal, start a game, 25% chance to corrupt the game with a random anomaly. So anomalies are something that's already been introduced in Battlegrounds. And I should mention as well, the reason this is important is because in addition to cho'gall, which is just a legendary that you won't see that often, anomalies will be active in all games for the first week after the patch, and after that week they'll be active in 25% of games until patch 28.0. which is the next expansion 2 months from now. So they are going to be all over the game, even for the next several months. So that's why it is rather important. This led to a whole lot of panic on social media. I'm not sure if you guys are, definitely not everyone's on social media. It's a good decision, don't do it. But the reason people are concerned, this is a screenshot from Jeef, who is one of the best, maybe the best Battlegrounds players in the world. You should definitely watch him if you're interested in that kind of content at all. But this is the kind of thing that gets created by the anomalies in Battlegrounds. These are actual numbers. I can actually tell you exactly how many stats these have because there is actually a max cap in this game. It is equal to 2 to the 31st power, which is a number which is a bit larger than 2 billion. Yeah, these are a bunch of minions that have 2 billion attack and health. I don't know how familiar you all are with Battlegrounds, but minions typically don't have 2 billion health. Like something like 100 or 200 is considered largely. So people were panicking on social media about, oh my god, what's going to happen to our beloved RNG simulator? I mean Hearthstone. They've revealed 3 so far. The other ones have not been publicly revealed yet. But they're not going to be the kind of thing that's going to create like 2 billion attack minions. But they can be pretty impactful. So the ones they have here, one of them is that both players start with Yogg-Saron in their opening hand. Another one is that both players start with 2 more drawn cards. And then the other one is reduce the cost of all cards in both players' starting hands by 1. You can tell, obviously, especially the first and third ones here, Yogg-Saron gives everyone a oh crap button, basically, a bailout button if they can get to 10 mana. And fast track, I mean, this can potentially be the most impactful because it can create games where someone, if they're a tempo deck, they might be able to vomit their hand by turn 3 and get like a turn 3 or turn 4 lethal possibly, right? You can very easily outpace even a lot of the board clears in the game, so you really might just get games completely trivialized by this one. But they did say on Twitter that they revealed like the most impactful ones, so most of them should be less impactful than these. So overall, like games shouldn't be getting decided too often by these anomalies, but it is possible that maybe 10-20% of the time they might have a very, very significant impact. Overall, it probably will make the game a bit of a fiesta for about a week, but then hopefully, because most of them aren't that impactful, most of them aren't that, they're only going to be in 25% of games, it probably shouldn't be too big of a deal if you hate that kind of variance. And it's a fun thing to have in the game, so overall I think it's fine. And by the way, there is also a chance that if someone does have cho'gall in their deck, that you can actually have 2 anomalies at once. That's also a thing to note. But going back to the point of actually like reviewing the card, this is a 6 mana, 6/7 taunt and a lifesteal. That's probably already a pretty good card, probably a very good card. Maybe not in the legendary slot, but of course, I mean, everyone's going to be picking this, right? Because it's a fun card, right? So I imagine people will be picking this very high. It's definitely an objectively good card. It's just, you probably shouldn't pick it over like a Titan or something, right? Or some other super premium legendary, but it's a good enough card that you can definitely afford to take it. Now that we're essentially done with Anomalies, let's talk about the next feature card of the expansion, Yogg-Saron Unleashed. This is a neutral Titan. Now this thing does have the effects like a Titan, but this is very, very different from all the other Titans for reasons we'll get into here. First of all, he's a 15 mana card. That doesn't seem very playable, but of course it has the text that it costs 1 less for each spell you've cast this game. Okay, what are its Titan abilities? I'll assume you know what Titan abilities are, but they're essentially abilities you get to play each turn that this thing lives on the board. First one is Mind Control, and for some reason, although everything else is random about Yogg in this whole expansion, everything, this doesn't say a random minion, this is just targeted as far as I can tell. So this is a targeted Mind Control. They must have decided that random Mind Control wasn't good enough, so he just gets to Mind Control a minion. The next ability is called Induce Insanity, which is like kind of like a Mass Hysteria effect, except it's one-sided. Force each enemy minion to attack a random enemy minion, so it's like a much, much better version of that card. And Tentacle Swarm. Fill your hand with 1/1 Chaotic Tendrils. We'll have to explain what these are, but essentially this kind of gives an effect that's similar to Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, which we will get into, I guess, right now, because this is the Chaotic Tendril. These are cards that you can actually scale the effect of, and it gets theoretically more powerful each time. When 1 mana 1/1 Battlecry, cast a 1-cost spell and improve your future Chaotic Tendrils so they go up to 2-cost spell, 3-cost spell, 4-cost, etc., etc. That's why this would be essentially very comparable to a Puzzle Box. And I'll just mention now, we'll go into a little more detail later, but this is a card that is draftable and in the game, so it's a thing that you can theoretically build around, but we'll get into more detail about in a little bit. So in trying to judge the power of this card, I mean, the first thing you could do pretty easily, say it's a Titan, so it's probably the best card ever printed, and you could probably end the analysis there and be pretty accurate. However, this one's a little more nuanced because you do need to have enough spells to actually play this. You know, it's 5 spells before it's playable at all. If you have a very low spell deck without a lot of spell discover or generation, you really can't play this. But nowadays in Arena, you have enough class cards and thus enough spells in your deck that pretty much any class will be able to play this at least. And in certain classes, if you can get this thing really cheap, theoretically, it becomes absolutely broken. But for a lot of classes, I mean, you'll be pretty happy. If you can get this down to like 8 or 9 mana, really, it does way more than it's supposed to. Like 8 mana, 7/5 plus a Mind Control. The one thing is that to be able to really use it like a Puzzle Box, you need to get it cheap enough that you can play a lot of the Tendrils, maybe like 5 or 6 Tendrils at the same time. So you would need to get it a little bit cheaper to be able to do that immediately. But yeah. It's definitely a very, very powerful card for sure. A lot of times if you're behind, you're going to use the board clear effect here first anyway. So that's not going to be an issue. You really just need to get this cheap enough that you can play it before your hero hits 0 health. So overall, yep, definitely it is a Titan, and it is, yes, a very powerful card. Let's go back to the next card here, which is Chaotic Tendril again. The 1 mana 1/1 cast a 1-cost spell, improve your future Tendrils. Something to note here is that this is a whole deck theme that you can kind of theoretically build around. However, there are other cards as well that create Chaotic Tendrils, but they are restricted to very specific classes. As of right now, I believe 2 classes haven't yet been revealed, but just to give you a sense, like only Rogue, Shaman, and Warlock actually have the ability to generate these, and these are on very good cards, so it will be possible to pick them. So in those specific classes, you can imagine it being like Jades, for example, where, you know, in the right classes you may actually be able to go for the strategy, but overall I just don't think like Chaotic Tendril, without the synergy, there's absolutely no reason you're going to want to pick this. If this is just casting a random 1-cost spell, a very high chance it just doesn't do anything. It might even just kill itself, right? So I think there's even a chance that even if you had other build around, you still might just not want to take this. It would probably be fine too, because you can imagine you'd essentially be getting maybe like a 5 or 6-cost spell out of this, which means it probably should be pretty good on average. But again, you know, you'd be taking a big risk in drafting it as well. With that, let's move on to the next card that synergizes with it as well. This is the other neutral card, the only other neutral card that synergizes with it except for Yogg, and it's Eye of Chaos. This is a 5 mana 5/4 epic. So here's the problem. It's like, well, you have a couple neutral cards that can potentially enable this synergy. Well, this is a neutral epic, which means at the offering rates currently, it might as well not exist. It's rarer than a legendary, essentially. So you just are never going to really get this offered. So again, like outside of those specific classes that actually have common class card enablers of the strategy, you're just not gonna want to draft expecting that this is ever going to work. Having said that though, I mean, if you are one of those classes, this is a 5 mana 5/4 kind. You can imagine it's like draw 2 cards, although it's, you know, again, like really bad cards if you don't have this energy, but potentially really good cards if you have this energy. So if you are going for that and it's that type of, it's one of those classes, you can probably pick this. It still may not be objectively correct over a lot of things, but you know, it's fun. And if that's your idea of fun, then you can definitely go for that. I think it's strong enough that you're not like completely throwing the game by that. But of course, you really should only do it in those specific classes. And then with that, let's move on to the last card, the one I saved for last, which is actually probably going to be by far the most impactful card for Arena as far as just its, you know, its rarity and things and its level of impact. That is Prison Breaker. This is a 4 mana 4/4 battle cry. If you cast 5 or more spells this game, deal 3 damage to all enemies. So there was a card that it was like 7 mana. It was a large minion. It might have been like a 4/8 or something, or a 4/10. I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was a 6/10. I don't know, 5/10. It was something like that. But it had a similar effect. It was if it had actually been in your hand and seen you cast 3 spells, same effect, deal 3 to all enemies. That card was very, very good in Arena, and because it doesn't actually have to see you cast the spells, arguably this condition is easier to meet. Obviously in certain situations, if you have it in your hand early, it might be harder, but overall I think maybe it's about the same. In a lot of games it's going to be easier, and very important is that you can just top deck it and have it be active immediately in the late game as well, and that might just end the game. Because it's all enemies, it does go face. And so the other thing that's interesting is that this is probably something where if you're really trying, you may actually want to be tracking how many spells your opponents cast, because this is going to be common enough as a neutral rare that you can actually kind of expect it. So that might be a thing you want to actually track actively to know when this thing might come out. The only downside, of course, being that if you're a class that just doesn't have that many spells, and particularly doesn't really have any spell generation, it may be quite a while before you can trigger this. But I think overall in most decks, and especially in certain classes like Mage, for example, I mean, this is going to be like one of the best cards ever in Mage. And in most classes, some classes it might be like, you know, low to mid value, but a lot of classes it'll be somewhere in the middle essentially. So a very, very impactful card that I think will be, as far as the actual gameplay is concerned, the most defining card of this mini set here as far as impacting the actual arena. But with that is it for this review. Let me know what you think of these cards, especially like some of these crazy neutral cards. What do you think about Anomalies and all of that? Let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already if you wish to support the channel. Keep an eye out for the next 24 hours or so for the class card reveal pretty soon. But yeah, thanks a lot again for hanging out. I'll see you all in the next one.